The Pacific War was one of the most brutal and decisive theaters of the Second World War, reshaping global power and forever changing the nature of modern warfare. Fought across vast oceans, remote islands, and dense jungles, the conflict between Imperial Japan and the United States became a struggle for dominance in Asia and control of the world's largest ocean. By the early 1940s, Japan had already spent years expanding its empire across East Asia, driven by a critical lack of natural resources such as oil, rubber, and metals. Japanese leaders believed that territorial expansion was the only path to survival as a great power. At the same time, the United States increasingly viewed Japan's advance as a direct threat to its interests in the Pacific. Economic sanctions and an oil embargo deepened tensions, making armed conflict almost inevitable. Everything changed on December 7, 1941. In a carefully planned surprise attack, Japanese carrier-based aircraft struck the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Within hours, much of the U.S. Pacific Fleet lay damaged or destroyed, and thousands of American servicemen were dead. The attack shocked the United States and marked its full entry into World War I. What Japan intended as a decisive blow instead awakened an industrial and military giant. The Pacific War quickly evolved into a new kind of conflict. Aircraft carriers replaced battleships as the dominant weapons at sea, and air power became decisive. American forces faced the immense challenge of transporting troops, equipment, and supplies across thousands of kilometers of open ocean, while fighting an enemy determined to defend every island to the last man. From coral atolls to tropical jungles, battles were fought in some of the harshest conditions soldiers had ever experienced. In the months following Pearl Harbor, Japan achieved rapid victories across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Hong Kong, Singapore, the Philippines, and the Dutch East Indies fell in quick succession. At its peak in 1942, the Japanese Empire controlled an enormous territory and appeared unstoppable. Yet beneath the surface, critical weaknesses were beginning to emerge. The turning point came at sea, in the Battle of the Coral Sea, and soon after at Midway. American intelligence and carrier aviation dealt devastating blows to Japan's experienced naval air forces. At Midway in June 1942, 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were lost in a single day. This defeat shattered Japan's offensive capability and shifted the strategic initiative to the United States. From that moment on, the war became a long and costly counteroffensive. The United States adopted a strategy later known as island hopping, bypassing heavily fortified positions while capturing key islands that could support airfields and naval bases. Guadalcanal became the first major ground offensive for American forces, introducing months of brutal land, sea, and air combat. Victory came at a terrible cost, but it proved that Japan could be beaten. As American industrial power surged, new fleets of aircraft carriers and modern warships poured into the Pacific. Japanese communications were increasingly compromised by Allied codebreakers, allowing U.S. commanders to anticipate enemy movements. One by one, Japanese strongholds fell. The death of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, further weakened Japan's strategic leadership. Later battles, such as Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, revealed the full intensity of the conflict. Japanese defenders fought with extraordinary determination, often refusing to surrender. Civilian populations suffered immensely, influenced by propaganda that portrayed surrender as dishonor. These battles demonstrated how costly an invasion of the Japanese home islands would be. By 1944 and 1945, American forces had pushed close enough to Japan to launch direct air attacks on its cities. Strategic bombing intensified, culminating in the deployment of a new and terrifying weapon. In August 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, causing unprecedented destruction and loss of life. Combined with the Soviet Union's entry into the war against Japan, these events forced Japanese leaders to confront the reality of total defeat. On September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Japan formally surrendered, bringing an end to the Pacific War and the Second World War as a whole. The conflict left millions dead, cities in ruins, and an enduring legacy that continues to shape global politics and military strategy to this day. This documentary-style overview reconstructs the Pacific War using historical analysis and original archival material, exploring how strategy, technology, and human endurance determined the outcome of one of history's most consequential conflicts.